All right, hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about the portable cords, also known as extension cords. Right. So let's just take a look at some of the stuff that you're going to have to deal with when you find yourself jobs. Usually portable cords on a consumer level are the ones that, you just go to the store and buy it and just keep using it for the most part for the household use. You can almost buy any cord at any hardware store, and that should be fine. Well, I say should be, but for the most part, it should be okay. But when you find yourself jobs and you're going to have to plug in all kinds of different equipment and use things for different purposes, or sometimes you're going to have to recommend some of the portable cords for your clients, then at least we should know something about what do we eat this sandwich with. All right. Anyways, okay, so let's just take a quick look at what's going on here. Portable cord, which is also known as flexible cord or extension cord cable, is a cable with multiple conductors, of course, used in applications requiring flexibility. The cord can be used to provide power for a range of applications such as small hand tools, movable equipment, power extensions, and home appliances. And here are some examples of the portable cords. Here is that, here we have a yellow cord, here we have a white cord, and that looks like a European plug, there's that 220 that they have in Europe. So for now, what we're looking at is a yellow cord, there's a white cord, there's a brown cord. There you go, guys. You know. All right, let's next slide. All right. What do we have here? Portable cords might be used in commercial, industrial, or residential applications. That's what we just talked about before we started this presentation. They work well on job sites where resistance, here's where things are going to start getting interesting. I got this thing here. They work well on job sites where resistance to oil, chemicals, and abrasion is important. So we are not talking about household applications anymore, right? Their construction enables them to perform well in extreme environments, both heat and cold, outside or inside. Additionally, some portable cords can be water resistant or water submersible. So depending on applications, we should be able to choose certain type of cords. Now, when it comes to the copper that's inside, it's still the same copper, and you could probably guess by now or deduct that because of flexibility is required, we are going to pretty much use the stranded conductors inside just to make up the portable cords. All right, just give me a sec here. All right. So the copper is copper, stranded cable, stranded conductor inside the cable. What makes the cord, and pretty much any other cable that you're going to be dealing with, what makes the difference is everything that surrounds it to accommodate the environment that the cable is going to be used. Right? Some of the cables and some of the portables or permanent installation use cables, they will require to be UV rated. Some of them are going to have certain fire resistance to fire, and you're talking about the FT ratings, and you might want to take a look at your code or ask your teacher what the FT ratings are. Whoever teaches you code, ask them to point that out in the code book. What is the difference between FT4 and FT6. We will talk about this next time when we talk about the network cabling. However, it's a good idea for you to start thinking that way as well. So we'll talk about a little bit of about that. But FT, FT4, and FT6. So that has to do with the fire rating. Now, when it comes to portable cords, extension cords, they're not meant to be used as permanent installation. They are portable cords, temporary use. So they are meant to connect maybe a hand drill or any kind of equipment that requires portability. And depending on the environment, you're going to have different type of, well, you can call sheathing or jacketing that surrounds the copper that is inside the cable. All right. Here is a mouthful I'm going to give you, and then we're going to talk about what's going on with this. Common types include SJT, SVT, SEOW, SJ, SJOW, SO, and SOW, not surpassed by the SOW, now surpassed by the SOW. So now you know everything about those chords, right? There we go. The letters correspond to a characteristic of the insulation. See, when I'm talking about the cord, the copper inside is pretty much what it is. What makes cable different is the surrounding or insulation and jacket applied to the cable. Oh, what do we have here? Rubber, durable, greater dielectric strength. That's for the SOOW. Higher tear resistance. Maximum continuous temperature is 90 degrees Celsius. Minimum -40. So it would go from -40 to 90. So you could go to Saskatchewan and well, use that cable outside for a few minutes in the winter. Now, SOW, SOOW, and here's the SEOOW. Thermoplastic PVC, thermoplastic elastomer, maximum continuous temperature 105 degrees Celsius. And so when you see this symbol, that means this. When you see this symbol, that means that. Okay, so let's take a look at some other. Let's take a look at some of that thing that, well, in more details here, right? You see here we have those letter designations. Right. And we have the explanations of what that. So now when you see something like that, SOOW, SEOW. Now, here's the thing I want you to know. When you go to a local hardware or department store, and you buy yourself a coffee maker, and then you want to plug it in somewhere. So most of the time, you're going to get just a regular extension cord if you need it, and you're going to use that or any vacuum cleaner or whatnot. Now, when it comes to industrial type, there is no plug and play. You are going to be the people who will supposed to know what to use in which situation. And sometimes you're going to look at some of those acronyms or the abbreviations or the designations, rather, that will be specified on the machine that you're supposed to connect. Because if you need to connect certain type of machine, you're going to have to choose a proper cable so you don't damage the equipment and you don't start the fire. And you're going to have some specifications on the equipment that requires certain type of cable. And then you're going to have to order certain type of cable according to the designations. And maybe you're going to find yourself in an environment that is going to require of you to choose appropriate type of cable based on what you see in the environment that you find yourself in. Like, for example, Someone's going to ask you to recommend a proper extension cord or a portable cord to use in a mechanics shop where a bunch of chemicals and oils and all kinds of stuff is on the floor, on the walls, everywhere, right? So you're going to have to make sure that you get the appropriate cable for that. Right? All right, so let's, my mouse is jumping again. So let's see what those letters mean. Here's the S, see that here? S. What does the S stand for? It's a severe service cord. We already know from the previous lecture that service means it's a cable that is supposed to provide power. Okay? So it's severe service cord as opposed to the SJ, which stands for junior severe service cord. They just call it severe. Now, the severe service cord or junior severe service cord, you can see that they are rated for different type of voltage that can be carried through that cable. So the S, which stands for severe service cord, is rated for 600 volts. And also it's supposed to handle 277, 480, or, well, 480. May be utilized in place for SJ in extra severe service. Well, what does that mean here? Well, severe service cord is rated for more volts than the severe junior service cord. So of course, because the junior service cord is rated for 300 volts, which means it also should be able to handle 120 and 120 and 208, 120 240 or 240 to 7. Well, you know, but not the cable that is labeled as 277/480, because see, 480 is more than 300. Okay? So you can use this cable instead of this, but you can't go the other way. And it's pretty much obvious why, right? Then there's that T. What does the T stand for? Do we have in the previous slide? Oh, no, we don't have a T here. Thermoplastic. What's thermoplastic? A thermoplastic is a property that lets the material to be heated and cooled down repeatedly. And as the material heats up, it's going to change its properties, obviously. But some of the materials, when they are heated up and they're cooled down, after that process, they change their physical properties. They become something different. Now, thermoplastic is a material that if you heat it up and cool it down, it will keep its properties. It will not change. Then here is one that says heat resistant or high heat resistant. Well, then when you're going to have to choose that, you're going to like annealing and hardening. Okay, so like annealing and hardening, it doesn't do that. Annealing and hardening. Okay, so here's the thing. When annealing and hardening, we're talking about metal. You heat up the metal and cool it down, because sometimes, well, depending on what you want to do with the piece of metal that you're doing, you are actually heating it up and cooling it down rapidly. Or if it comes to annealing, then you're just heating it up and let it cool down on its own. You're changing the properties of that little bit. And for the most part, if it comes to annealing, then you want to get the properties back to where they were, because maybe some piece of metal was going through some sort of stress, and that then the metal is showing certain type of fatigue signs. So you're going to anneal that to bring it back to what it was for the most part. And hardening, you're actually changing. So it's not thermoplastic property. A thermoplastic is when you have a rubber jacket, then you're going to present that to some sort of a heat, and yes, that material is going to become a little bit softer. But then when you cool it down to the temperature that you had before, and it is not going to change. It's still going to have the same type of physical properties as far as you'll be able to flex it or stretch it or whatnot. Right? So that's the thermoplastic properties, right? So when it comes to heat resistant, then of course you're going to have to dig a little bit further in the specifications just to make sure that what do you mean? What do the specs mean when it comes to heat resistance, as far as the well, exact numbers of how many degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit or whatnot, right? Now here is the N, stands for nylon outer jacket material. Well, not much to explain here. And then E here stands for elastomer. It's a thermoplastic material that looks and feels like rubber. Then here we have the O and we have the double O. So the O, I'm just looking at the chat. Sometimes some plastic gets, some plastic gets brittle if heated and cooled down. Yes. So some of the thermoplastic properties also, I'm just going to kind of jump out of the topic a little bit. When we study the optical fiber or the fiber optics cables, next term, that terminology, thermoplastic, is also going to be used. Right? So now we have the O and a double O. So oil resistant outer jacket material. Here comes the oil resistance. Oh, we have double O, it's oil resistant outer jacket and oil resistant insulation. Outer jacket, insulation. Okay. And here's the one for the label with V, which kind of, well, V stands for vacuum. And it's not about, you can use that thing in space when there's, no, typically used with vacuum cleaners and other portable cleaning equipment. Some of the cables that are used for this type of equipment, first of all, those cables go through a lot of stress, physical stress, when it comes to coiling it, winding and storing and uncoiling it multiple times. Excuse me, sometimes a few times a day. Plus, it also, well, should withstand most of the cleaning chemicals that are being used for the custodial purposes. Okay? So here is the vacuum thing. So it's just basically, well, it can take a lot more physical abuse repeatedly for that. And then here's the W here, and we're talking about CSA, weather resistant and water resistant, approved for indoor and outdoor use. So when you see that W, so that's what it means. Okay. All right, so let's see this slide says understanding cable types. What does a label SJEOOW mean? All right, so you're actually going to see that kind of stuff right on the box, and I bet you didn't see that. You just see some kind of something on the box, and you could probably walk by it and not notice that it exists. But now, after this class, you're going to see this actually, and you're going to know what it means, right? So what do we have here? We have the S, but do we have the J follow the S? Yes, we do. So if it were just S, then the cable would stand would be rated for 600 volts. But because we see the J here, so that means a service junior cable. So automatically the voltage goes down to 300 volts. It's rated for 300. So we know this cable is rated for 300 volts. What do we have here? We have the E, all right, thermoplastic polymer type E. E, elastomer. It's a thermoplastic material that looks and feels like rubber. That's it. Thermoplastic PVC, thermoplastic rubber. There we go. So we have these three letters. Now we have the O's. Do we have one O or do we have two O's? Well, we have two, which means it's a double insulated. Well, I shouldn't say double insulated. The jacketing and if it was just single O, then it means that it's this jacketing here is oil resistant, which means it's not going to be damaged as quick as material that is not oil resistant. All right, still going to get if you abuse anything for long enough, you're going to break it, right? But we have two O's, so that means oil resistant jacket and oil resistant insulation. So we got two O's. See that? Here. Jacket and insulation. And we have that W here, which means it's weather resistant. If it's weather resistant, it's basically pretty much automatic. Water resistant, because weather sometimes, you have dry day outside and sometimes it rains a lot. So, and what is rain made out of? Well, water. These days, wink, wink, mostly water. And everything else that is in the air comes down with it. All right. If there was nothing there, that means you can't use that cable outside. Some cables, you're going to see U instead of W. And mostly that goes with the not service cables, but it goes like telecommunications, like coaxial cable. And that means it's a UV rated cable. If it's weather resistant, it should be UV rated as well. Because what would be the sense of having a weather resistant cable if it's not UV resistant? But always have to make sure. All right. Is the oops. Here is then there's some notes because sometimes you're going to see some differences between Canada, States, and the rest of the world. So in Canada, E becomes T. So if you see cables from the States, maybe so the instead of the T, well, T becomes E. So it pretty much is the same thing here. So you're going to have E or T. It's going to mean the same thing added after the other letters. For example, SJEOW instead of T. All right. Now SJTOW. See that? SJEOW, SJTOW. So that's basically this going to be the same thing. And then there's a second note here that's mostly applies to the States. Well, WA prior, so W and A. So instead of W, you're going to have A some of the cables, and that has to do with the rules and regulations in the States. UL 62, right? We go with CSA in Canada. All right. So when we start the All right, so that's the last slide. Let's just take a quick practice of what's going on here. Using the chart below, which is the same chart that we had before, define the following cables: SEOW, SOW, and THHN and THW. All right, well, what do we have? First cable here, this one. We got S. Do we have J after that? No, we don't. So that means it's a severe service code. It's rated for 600 volts. All right. E, where do we have E? It's elastomer, which is a thermoplastic material, which the repeated cooling and heating and cooling is not going to change its physical properties. It's going to be as it was. And it's going to look and feel like rubber. So flexibility and handling is, well, added comfort. All right. Now we have the O. Do we have the second O? Yes. So that means it should be oil resistant, but we should have the jacket that encloses the whole cable, encapsulates the whole cable, plus the insulation of each conductor should be oil resistant. And we have the W at the end, which means it's a weather resistant cable approved for indoor and outdoor use. So we can use this cable outside. And we can use this thing at the car shop or mechanics shop where oils are present and whatnot. And the other ones here are telling us the voltage that is rated for and the type of physical property right here. So this mystery solved. What does what we have here? SOOW. So it's a severe service cord. Do we have J? No. So we're talking about 600 volt rating. OO, well, oil resistance, outer jacket and inner insulation. And it is supposed to be, it can be used outside. There is no E here, so that means, well, maybe it's not going to be as comfortable to handle as that one here. What do we have here? T, thermoplastic. It should be thermoplastic, which means, well, look at this here, T and H. So, and we have the other H here, so the two H's. So that means a high heat resistance, right? And then we're going to have to make sure that some of the temperatures are specified. High heat resistant, and look, this pretty much almost goes together. The T's and the H's will quite often go together because that looks like the cable is going to be exposed to heat or high heat, which means it's going to be heated and cooled down. So then it's probably would be a really good idea if it was a thermoplastic, which means when you heat it up and cool it down, and I'm repeating this thing probably 17th time right now, you heat things up and cool things down, and they will not change their properties. They're not going to become brittle or otherwise compromised, right? And then there's that N, and that stands for nylon outer jacket material. Would you use that as a vacuum cleaner cord? Probably not, right? It's overkill, one, plus if you abuse it physically too much as far as coiling it, uncoiling, winding it and unwinding it, hanging it somewhere else, then it might not like that. But there could be some other properties that need it for whatever the environment. And here is the last, here is the THC. Again, the T goes with H's usually. So it's a thermoplastic and it's heat resistant, not necessarily high heat resistant. And we're talking about weather. So can you use this one outside? Yes. Can you use this one outside? Well, I wouldn't, because it doesn't have the W, not weather resistant. You leave it outside for a longer period of time, and the elements are going to get to it, and the cable might not be as safe as it used to be when it was out of the box. All right. So out of these 1, 2, 3, 4 cables, which ones can we use outside? This one here, that one here, but not this one. Right. So is that the last slide? That is the last slide of this class. Now, I'm going to ask you on some of these questions that have to be, and I might present the type of environment that you're going to find yourself in, and I'm going to give you some choices which of these cables apply to the environment that you're in. So I'm not going to ask you to memorize all this stuff here. I just want you to know that something like that exists, and the portable types designation, portable cords designations. So whenever you find yourself in a situation that you should specify a cable or two, then you know where to look for things. Nobody's expecting you to memorize that. However, if you're working in an environment that you're constantly going to look at those symbols and designations, then you're going to remember that. It's going to stay in you no matter what, right? So, but on the tests, I'm going to give you, well, you will have that thing to look at. I just want you to know that this exists and where to look for it. Later on, years from now, if you don't have this presentation saved somewhere, you can still find that in the code books, or worst comes to worse, you can Google things, but make sure that it's a good source. All right. Cool. Guys, this is, and gals, this is the last slide of this presentation, and it is Friday, and the weather is just, I don't want to say terrible because it's always beautiful no matter what, but it's just something that I wouldn't go and enjoy a beer on a patio today. Not exactly, right? So don't do that. Everything else, use in moderation, and I will see you when I see you. Please watch that video that I showed you, the preparation for the next lab, because we're starting the next 2 weeks. We're starting the pigtails lab. So be prepared, bring your tools, bring your PPE, and I will see you when I see you. Okay, I'm talking too much now. All right, cool. Good. Thank you, guys. And I'll, yeah, I already said that. Bye. Mm.